Will Kirby Smart and Georgia break down the barrier in 2020? Talking Georgia football with spring practice on the horizon with Palmer Thoms on the line from Dogs 247. Please join Palmer right there, and you can catch him right here on a regular basis covering Georgia football for us. Palmer, how you doing today?
Doing well. It feels, it's been raining for 3 weeks straight here in Athens. We finally got a great day. Feels like spring practice, should be coming up, and I guess we got it, in just over 2 weeks, starting up on Tuesday, March 17th, and spring game will be here before you know it. And, then we got that long drought in the middle of it. And then, season is coming up, rolling around in August. So excited to be talking Georgia football again and excited to be joining you today.
I got to be thinking that most people up until maybe midseason of this past year thought that Jake Fromm was going to stick around for 4 full seasons, would have been a pretty historic run in regards to just longevity, having taken over as a starter in game 2 of his freshman season and riding it out through 3 SEC championship game appearances, bowl games, of course, in the Sugar Bowl twice, and of course, a college football playoff and SEC title as a freshman. Before we get to the look in 2020, your thoughts about Jake Fromm and his Georgia legacy and prospects in the NFL?
Yeah, he didn't have he didn't really wow anyone at the NFL Combine, but I don't think anybody, really expected him to, run a blazing 40 or, show off his arm. I think the thing that stands out to me about Jake Fromm is that he was a winner. He won at he's won at every level. He won in high school. He won in college, did it his freshman, sophomore, and junior year. And he had the weapons around him, and he, especially in his first 2 seasons, with the likes of Nick Chubb and Sony Michel in the backfield with him. And then, you've got DeAndre Swift with him for the next, 2-3 seasons, really 2 seasons as the primary back in, Jake's sophomore and junior year. Same with, Swift there. And then, he loses a ton of weapons to the NFL, over the course of those 3 seasons. But, to me, what stands out to Jake is that he was a competitor. He came in here, into Athens, and it wasn't his job. Kind of got thrown into the fire week 2 at Notre Dame in 2017, and proved to people that he can go out and win games. Kind of brought Georgia back to where they've been accustomed to being, and it's now not a surprise that Georgia's here. It's an expectation that Georgia's going to be in competition in the conversation for a college football playoff spot. And I think Jake Fromm, beating out the likes of Jacob Eason, beating out Justin Fields, I think that speaks volumes about him and, about where this Georgia football program is and where it can be going under Kirby Smart.
Yeah, so folks, think about that for just a second. What Justin Fields accomplished at Ohio State, Jacob Eason doing a fine job at Washington and now moving on to the NFL as well. And then consider that Jake Fromm held them off in a stiff quarterback battle that I don't think we understood at the time was as good as it was in regards to having 3 starting quarterbacks for those type of programs in one camp. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Please lock it in right here. If you love college football, you got to subscribe. That's all there is to it. Best discussion, debate, and analysis every day. If you want to lock it in on Georgia, follow Palmer Thoms there at Dogs 247 Sports. So we move on to Fromm, who was not a mobile quarterback, to a Jamie Newman, who played really well at Wake Forest for the most part, but brings that dual threat style. Your thoughts about Jamie Newman? I'm considering that you probably have given him a look since he announced his transfer, since he's the front runner to win the job.
Absolutely. And I would say he's probably the biggest addition to the Georgia roster this offseason, which says a lot about him considering they're bringing in the #1, ranked recruiting class. Like we mentioned, given the departure of Jake Fromm after 3 years as a starter, a little bit unexpected. But, Kirby Smart goes out, prioritizes that, and, gets Jamie Newman in the fold. And, I do think it's going to be a competition. I would, like you mentioned, Newman is the favorite to win the job. I don't, Kirby Smart always is, one to, really harp on the fact that nothing is given. It's going to be a competition. And I think that's especially going to be the case when you don't have a returning starter. So I think you're going to get to see Several guys run with the ones, but like you mentioned, Jamie Newman is the, hands down favorite to win the job there. Put up 2,868 passing yards last season, 26 touchdowns. He did throw 11 interceptions, which, if you're a Georgia fan, you've been watching Jake Fromm the last couple of seasons. He's been great with, keeping control of the ball, not turning it over. Well, Newman is a little bit more turnover prone, but you got to think that maybe that number drops down when he's around, talent that he's going to be, surrounded by at Georgia. And then you also mentioned his dual threat ability. It's something that Georgia hasn't seen in quite some time. And, I think there's an excitement level with, new offensive coordinator Todd Monken coming in. And his air raid style offense. He's running it in the pros. He's running in college. He's got head coaching experience, and I think everyone here in Athens, I think in that football building, among the fans, I think everyone's excited to see, exactly what that new offense is going to look like, and I think a big piece of that new offense is going to be Jamie Newman, and just the different aspects that he can bring to the table.
You mentioned the 11 picks, 26 touchdown passes, 61% completion percentage. He added 6 touchdowns on the ground. I'm looking at the game log and just reviewing the teams in the ACC. So I think with a little bit better, I don't want to say better coaching because Dave Clawson's an excellent coach at Wake Forest, but in regards to them getting it through his skull, you've got a great defense. You've got great weapons around you. You don't have to take chances. They're not going to state it like this, but we're better than everybody we play pretty much. You don't need to take chances. Let's hang on to the football. And the interceptions should, you would think, again, with the coaching and development and a certain approach, would be reduced, although he's going to face better defenses in the SEC by far. Clemson was by far the best defense that he faced this past season, and he had a rough 6 for 14. But again, they're overmatched in that game. He threw 2 picks. I'm going to say the second best defense he faced was Michigan State. Had a 12 for 17 day for 175 yards, threw 3 touchdowns in that game. They lost in a very close game. And then after that, it really fell off to a lot of marginal, to be kind at defenses in North Carolina State, Louisville, those type of teams in the ACC. So it'll be interesting. So backing up, most likely Jamie Newman, but still the competition is right there. Palmer, kind of outline the quarterback room for us.
Yeah, I mean, you've got 2 guys that are returning, from the room this past season, Stetson Bennett and Dwan Mathis. Bennett served as the backup to Fromm in 2019. Both those guys were, came in this past recruiting class. Bennett was here in Athens during that 2017 national championship run to the national championship, SEC championship run. He was a walk-on that year, played scout team, and he got a lot of praise. Come spring 2018, you've got Jake Fromm, Justin Fields, and I think a lot of Georgia fans remember watching that spring game and thinking, who the heck is number 20 playing quarterback? Who is this that's going to be our third string quarterback? And that was Stetson Bennett. Bennett ends up transferring out of the program, goes to junior college in Mississippi for a year. Fields obviously ends up leaving, going to Ohio State, and Kirby Smart felt the pressure to bring in 2 quarterbacks in that 2019 signing class, and does so with Bennett, at the last minute, bringing him in from, junior college. He comes in for spring of 2019. They flipped Dwan Mathis from Ohio State. So, Mathis is another interesting guy. Back to Bennett. Bennett played in 5 games in 2019. A lot of scrub minutes, just against second team, late in games. So he hasn't felt the pressure. He played 1 drive in the SEC championship when Jake Fromm went down with a ankle injury, went over to the sideline, got it taped up, and he was back in. So Bennett really hasn't been in a high pressure situation that he would be in as a starting quarterback. Like I said, I think there's going to be a competition. I think it's going to be Jamie Newman that wins it out, but Stetson Bennett is the guy that comes in with the most experience, with Kirby Smart. Mathis, like I said, he flipped from Ohio State in 2019. He was, practiced early enrollee, practiced with the team, last spring. But then he was sidelined all of the 2019 season after having a cyst removed from his brain. He, was able to, like I said, able to participate in spring drills. He was able to do, throw and do 7-on-7, some non-contact stuff, help him with the scout team. But he redshirted last year, didn't play in any games. So he is cleared to practice this spring, cleared to go, full contact, which, you never really get full contact with a quarterback in practice. But, I think it'll be an interesting case to see, just exactly what he can bring to the table, whether he can push Stetson Bennett for that second spot behind Jamie Newman. And then, I think the guy that probably is exciting the most people, aside from Newman, would be Carson Beck, early enrollee quarterback out of Jacksonville, Florida, 4-star prospect, Elite 11 quarterback out of Mandarin High School, led Mandarin to a state championship in his junior season. He won Mr. Football, taking the team from 2-8 to a state championship in Florida's highest classification. Lost a lot of production in his senior season. The talent around him dropped off. And so his numbers dropped a little bit, but he was still able to lead them to a playoff appearance. Thing that really stands out to me about Beck is that he's a competitor. He's willing to come in and work. He committed here when, Jake Fromm was, expected to be coming into his 4th year. And I think, Beck is a kid that wants to be in Athens, and wants to, give it all he's got. He came for bowl practices, helped with the team during bowl practices, playing the role of Charlie Brewer for Baylor ahead of the Sugar Bowl. I think it'll be good to have a guy like that in the fold, in that quarterback room, as a young guy that has talent and that can, push, for a number 2 spot, can make Stetson Bennett better, can make Dwan Mathis better. And, ultimately, I think Beck would tell you that his ultimate goal would be to push Jamie Newman for that starting job. I don't know that, I don't know that it's going to happen, but with Newman being a 1-year guy, Carson Beck could very easily, push and, be that number 2 guy. And then going into the next season, being a very, tight quarterback competition against Brock Vandegrift, the 2021 quarterback that Georgia's going to sign.
Beck, the 9th-rated pro-style quarterback in the 247 composite out of Jacksonville in the 2020 class. Georgia fans, college football fans, please like, comment, share the videos, and subscribe right here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, and give Palmer Thomas a follow on Twitter, as well as check out his work at Dogs247. Palmer, we appreciate you stopping by.
Absolutely.